So it's D-Day. Very, very close to the day that King Charles has to make a decision about whether he is going to give in to what I believe is very public bullying from his despicable, duplicitous son using the mainstream media and have this face-to-face with Prince Harry when he is in London on Monday for his cancer treatment, or side with his other son, his loyal son, the heir to the throne, Prince William, and say, unfortunately, I am not going to give you the ammunition to use against the royal family. Lady Colin Campbell, what is Charles going to do, and why does nobody know?
The way you talk about it over coffee with a friend who's following every twist of the royal soap opera. We're looking at the looming showdown between King Charles, Prince Harry, and Prince William, with Lady Colin Campbell's commentary framing the whole drama. Buckle up, because this isn't just about one possible meeting. It's about manipulation, family betrayal, media games, and the never-ending fallout from Diana's shadow.
Yeah, that's the way you put it. Well, I think Charles is caught between a rock and a hard place, isn't he? And he's been manipulated into it by Harry, Meghan, their people, and certain organs in the mainstream media, especially in this country. Because, as you know only too well, the two of the main competing news organizations in this country, namely the Mail and the Telegraph, they jockey for position, and each of them really, to serve their own ends, will create a dynamic that really puts Charles in an invidious position. I can well see why it does not suit the king to meet up with Harry at this point. If he does meet up with him and twist and turn things, but my understanding is that it's not very likely that Charles is going to meet up with him. But you never know what's going to happen at the 99th hour.
No,
but
and I mean, there's been no phone calls. No phone calls. And would you not think, Lady C, there would at least be a phone call? I mean, I'm not meaning a call, by the way, between the officers, between the private secretaries or the communication secretaries, but I'm talking about between the king himself and his son. Would there not be a phone call before a face-to-face? Or is there a risk there that Harry would record the call and that's why Charles doesn't want to do it?
Well, there is that element as to why Charles will not receive calls from Harry or make calls to Harry, because, you know, he can be entrapped, and he's quite determined to not be entrapped. But if they, I mean, the last time they met was when Harry flew in and was received for 12 minutes at Clarence House, delaying the king's departure to Sandringham. And Charles didn't even know about this until Harry was in the air. And, you know, and so he really is used to the fact that Harry will manipulate the situation and present him with a fait accompli, which he won't be able to do this time. But if they do end up meeting, I think it will be in such constrained and contained environment, and such a contained environment, that it will be virtually impossible for Harry to then spin around and say, because the last time, again, Harry wasn't able to flip it and say that X had happened or Y had happened or Z had happened, because they made sure that there were always witnesses and I think it is such an awkward position for the king to be in. But My understanding is that he is very on his guard where Harry is concerned, and that the complications of the relationship are such that there's not going to be any, oh, darling boy, it's so wonderful to see you, and let's kiss and make up. Harry hasn't apologized or even withdrawn the accusations of racism against Charles or against Catherine. He hasn't withdrawn any of the accusations against Camilla or against William. Now, you could say that Charles might take the view that William is perfectly capable of protecting himself, but that's not so where Catherine and Camilla are concerned. And indeed, my understanding is that Camilla is very determined to make sure that Harry does not manipulate things in such a way that his father's...
Let's dive in. So here we are, right on the edge of what some are calling D-Day for King Charles. He's got to decide. Option A, give Harry the meeting he's pushing for, knowing full well it could be a trap. Option B, stand firm, side with William, and risk being painted as a cold-hearted dad who refuses his lost son.
Kindness and more sentimental and sympathetic and sensitive streak will be exploited by Harry, because that means that they, by allowing Harry to giving Harry an inch, will give Meghan not a mile, but 100 miles. And they're not prepared to do that.
Well, indeed. And I mean, look, I was the first to report back in 2021 that Charles and William had made a pact to never be with Harry on their own. That was very sensible. So there will always be a witness in the room. So even if there is to be a meeting on Monday, I am absolutely convinced that there will be someone else in the room. Now, I don't necessarily think it will be Camilla. It's more likely to be the private secretary. But the point is, Charles is not stupid enough to meet on his own with Harry. That is not going to happen, even though I don't think there should be a meeting at all. But seriously, Lady C, the reason I don't think there should be a meeting at all is because, is Harry really going to agree to be patted down? Because this is a man who for a long time, very senior courtiers and very senior royals have been suspicious for very good reason that he wears a secret recording wire to events with the royal family to document what is being said. So I would make it a condition of the meeting if I were Charles, or if I was the private secretary or communications secretary, to say, you're having to be patted down before you see your father. But Harry wouldn't agree to that.
Well, Harry is not necessarily in a position to agree or disagree to anything in a situation like that. You know, here, if it is imposed as a condition of meeting. But I think that the simplest thing and the most straightforward thing is to avoid meetings altogether until such time as sufficient air has cleared, or in the alternative, that the situation is so disastrous that it warrants a meeting. But neither of those is actually the reality at the moment. And I suspect that to a large extent, a lot of this speculation has been orchestrated by Harry and Meghan and their camp to keep themselves in the news, because remember, they need to keep themselves topical because they are hanging on by the skin of their teeth with Netflix. And they have lost credibility across the board, not only in terms of the American mainstream media now, but in terms of Netflix itself. So I would, shall we say, judge, and I'm trying to find a diplomatic way of putting it. I would judge that all of this speculation about a meeting is very much orchestrated by Harry and Meghan and their people, and that Charles doesn't want to be manipulated. And remember, he's used to being manipulated as well. He knows that Diana used to create situations like this. And he's been through it before. He's been around the block with her, so to speak. So Meghan and Harry coming up with what they regard as new tactics isn't going to work. The only reason why Charles would have a meeting with Harry on Monday was if he felt that it was going to be genuinely in the interests of.
According to Lady C, Charles is smack in the middle of a rock and a hard place. On one side, he's got Harry, desperate, manipulative, and allegedly orchestrating press leaks to make a meeting look inevitable. On the other, he's got William, the loyal heir, who's reportedly furious at even the thought of giving Harry more ammunition.
The country, the monarchy, and his role as a father. And I'm not sure that any of those boxes are going to be ticked between now and Monday.
And what do you make of the fact that Harry is using the media to try and pressure Charles into this meeting? I mean, it's all of the tactics that he used to accuse the royal family of using, the briefing, the spinning. Now he's doing it. He's trying to jump his father into a meeting by leaking to Christopher Buckton, the US editor of the Daily Mirror, that, a meeting is definitely going to happen, to make it impossible for Charles to say no.
I think, Dan, it's a classical technique in psychology known as projection. So, there's nothing unique about it. Harry and Meghan both and Meghan has done this for years. So I suspect that Harry has been a very avid pupil of Meghan's, where I do it to you, and then I accuse you of doing it to me.
Lady C, then of course we think about the career desperation that is going on. And we know that there are crisis talks in Montecito. And by the way, that is one of the reasons why Harry is so desperate to get this proximity back to the royal family, because of course it helps. But the big sort of unexploded grenade remains the Princess Diana project, which is definitely going to happen. And again, this is another reason why I think Charles is absolutely insane to meet with Harry, given Harry is going to do this, I am convinced. The Royal Rundown has predicted Lady C, and I thought this was a very interesting prediction, that he thinks his uncle Earl Spencer is going to be involved in this project too. Rob Shooter of Shooter Scoop has been reporting that the talks are now advanced with Netflix, with a Hollywood insider saying it's the ultimate card to play. Nothing sells like Diana. If Harry can package her story as a movie, Netflix keeps him on the payroll. This is the hit that he needs to survive. And that may be true, but it doesn't make it any less upsetting for King Charles and Prince William.
Amidst all this Harry drama, another story popped up. Valentine Lowe's revelation that young Camilla once fought off a groper on a train by whacking him in the groin with her stiletto. It's an incredible don't mess with me anecdote that actually makes Camilla seem tougher and more relatable. But Tom Bower's reaction, framing her as a party girl who somehow invited these situations, caused outrage. Lady C was quick to defend Camilla, saying what happens at a party isn't the same as being harassed on public transport. And frankly, she's right. Camilla did what any smart woman would do, fought back.
Well, it would be the end in tasteless exploitation. The only way that a Diana documentary is going to actually grab the public's attention, because remember, Diana has been dead for 28 years now. By the time they get that up and running, she'd be dead for 29 or 30 years. That means all the major youthful demographic has no experience of Diana, no real interest in Diana. You and I may have an interest in Diana, you because you are a professional journalist, I because I have written 2 books on her. But the fact of the matter is that Diana is a dead subject in more ways than one. And so I think you need to bear that in mind. If they go over the reality and the evidence of what happened, it's old news. There's nothing to be added. It's all been said and done. The only thing that will work is for them to take the view that Diana's death had more to it than meets the eye. And was she bumped off? If they are going to be, shall we say, rational and responsible, they would then have to come to the conclusion that the evidence shows that Diana's death was a result of the realities that took place at the time. But if they take that sort of approach, that will give them enough of a gap to come up with all sorts of speculation. Was she bumped off? Did Prince Philip have something to do with it? Oh, if he didn't, who did? Blah, 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 blah. And that would be a study in opportunistic exploitation of the highest order by her son and her brother, which would be so tasteless that I'm not saying that it wouldn't attract some traction, but I really do not think that unless they are going to accuse somebody who is unexpected of having bumped Diana off or played a part in the bumping of her off, it is not going to be the huge story that and the huge hit that the media would like to believe it will be. That's my take on it. And remember, Dan, this is a subject I'm extremely familiar with.
No, it's fascinating. Fascinating view.
Do you think it will be quite as big as they think it's going to be? Because
no, I agree with you, but it depends how dramatic Harry goes. And I want to talk to you about this later, but I mean, for example, if he starts questioning...
It's a small story compared to Harry's chaos, but it reinforces a point. Camilla has survived scandal, gossip, and sexism her whole life. She's not about to let Harry undermine Charles now. Here's the sad reality. Harry and Meghan need the royals more than ever. Their American star is fading, their Netflix deal is shaky, and Hollywood isn't buying their victim narrative anymore. Proximity to Charles and William is the only way they stay relevant. But the royal family knows this. They know any kindness will be spun into profit. They know Diana's ghost is about to be dragged out for another payday. And they know Harry hasn't apologized or changed. So Charles is left with the most unenviable choice of his reign so far. Does he act as a father or as a king? And in the modern monarchy, those two roles might be impossible to balance.